Green Bay Packers NFC runners-up in 2019. Brad, full disclosure, is a big Green Bay Packers, huge Green Bay Packers fan. Huge fat Packers fan. And he's always harping on quarterbacks, as listeners of the podcast have just heard. Always harping on quarterbacks because poor old Brad has had to root for Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers for about 30 years of his life, whatever that number is.
It's been tough.
It's been a tough. He's always talking about, you got to have a better quarterback. Like, they're so easy to find.
I know. Well, but they are findable. They are out there.
They are out there to be had. You're right.
Ask Seattle, right? They're there.
They're there.
Ask Baltimore. But that's a separate discussion. Go ahead. On with Green Bay.
Yeah. So let's look at this. Let's just start talking Aaron Rodgers. 13-3. What's his face? Colin Cowherd always hates on Aaron Rodgers. I don't buy it. Calls him. I don't know what that vendetta is. I think it's just because Aaron Rodgers didn't kiss the ring when he was on the show after he won the Super Bowl years and years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
So all Herd does now is come out against Aaron Rodgers, which I think is ridiculous. Aaron Rodgers,
it's crazy. It got really out of hand this year.
Really out of hand, especially when they lost the NFC Championship game. Which, I'm sorry, Brad, you're a fan. Like we had, if you want to go back and watch the game preview, I said, look, there's no chance this Packers team is going to beat this 49ers team. They're overmatched. And he came out. Right. He said that Aaron Rodgers made the quote unquote the business decision, basically likening the fumble when he fumbled the snap and the ball got kicked 5 yards behind behind the defense. There's no way he was blockaded at every turn. It was not the same as Cam Newton's quote unquote business decision where the ball was laying out there and he didn't dive for it, right? It's not that, right. Okay? So Herod's taken every possible chance to take a dig at Aaron Rodgers, and I think it's pathetic, to be honest with you. Just completely pathetic.
It got weird.
It's personal now. It's personal.
It went in, he started talking about his character. I forget the last rant, but you and I both spoke to each other about it and went, that one kind of didn't feel right. It was about like the petty type of guy he is. It was so petty. That's because...
And he came out with a smile talking about it like he was proving right. The 49ers were clearly the better team at that point, which we'll talk, and we will get to the Packers and kind of why we felt that was the case. Again, Brad being the big Green Bay Packers fan, there's no bias here. And me, I'm a betting guy. It was like, okay, the 49ers are going to throttle the Packers. It's just how that game was going to go. I'm sorry. It's just how it was going to go.
Yeah.
But talking about Rodgers here, we have 13-3 record, 62% completion percentage, which for Rodgers isn't his best, okay?
Sure.
4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, okay? So he only had 26 interceptions, but still a 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Mind you, how many 1-yard touchdown runs went to Aaron Jones this year? He had 16 touchdown runs, dude. Any of those could have been – he could have very easily had 30 touchdowns and 4 interceptions or 34 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. It's just that they committed the ball to running the goal line a little bit more than they had in the past. That's it. And who's the second best receiver on this team, Brad? We got Davante Adams, who's obviously great. Who's the second best receiver on this team? You can include tight ends.
That brings me to my next point. Hold on one second. Alexa, stop. Sorry for those folks at home. I was putzing with it yesterday. I accidentally set an alarm for noon. That's the type of life I have. I have to set a sleep alarm for noon.
Yeah, I believe it.
Dude, I was trying to figure that thing out yesterday. It was maddening. It was beyond maddening. Anyways, separate convo. So here's the thing is Rodgers had those great numbers, and it's like the sky's falling because they came down a touch. But did they really? Because we just saw his touchdown to interception, okay? They have Davante Adams as their number one, and that is it. They literally have Davante Adams and then practice squad guys, okay? And some concrete block named Jimmy Graham lined up on the end of the line.
Who's now on the Bears, but yeah.
Thank God. He will go down as one of my least favorite Packers of all time.
Yeah, I agree, man.
For sure.
All hype,
I couldn't stand that guy.
All hype, no production on the field for the Packers.
Oh my God. Any chance he had to make like a significant impact was just muffed.
Oh, and here's what Colin Cowherd's going to say, by the way. Here's a typical Cowherd thing. So Jimmy Graham was on the Seahawks. He's a big Russell Wilson fan. He's going to talk about how how Russell Wilson made Jimmy Graham great because Russell Wilson's great and Jimmy Graham was garbage everywhere else. And then the next day he's going to come out and say, Jimmy Graham, look how great he was in Seattle, and Aaron Rodgers couldn't get it done. That's Colin Cowherd. That's what we're going to hear.
It is true.
This year.
That's a great point, and you're spot on. They went 13-3. Were they as good as 13-3? No. But they were at least they were up there. They were one of the teams in the NFC. So they should have beat Philadelphia, but they probably won some games. Maybe they didn't.
Right. It's the NFL.
It's the NFL. You can debate that to the end of time.
Yeah, right.
But I think if they could just get anybody who's decent to be the number 2, and take another one of those practice squad guys like Lazar, who I'm not sure that has gone through puberty yet, and he was the number 2, then it could open up for them and they could be even better this year, because I think the defense is going to be better as well.
Yeah, I think everybody takes a step forward. Although I would say that Aaron Jones in fantasy circles would take a step back. It's hard to get. He had 19 total touchdowns, 16 rushing, 3 receiving. I mean, come on, that's hard to replicate.
It's hard to do that again,
unless you're LaDainian Tomlinson or Emmitt Smith.
I was just gonna say that LaDainian Tomlinson did that for a few years in a row. I think Marshall Faulk was doing that for a few years in a row, was awesome, right? Yeah.
It's
Faulk
rare.
was awesome, but it's super rare, right? And so chances are he won't do that again. But I do think that the team overall will be even better, even though their record may be 2 or 3 games in the other column, right?
I agree.
I agree. Be 11-5 and be better.
Yeah, and the big thing here, and let's talk a little bit. I want to kind of close the gap on my thoughts on San Francisco, and they're pretty well documented on the podcast. But for anybody who's kind of catching this new and fresh and everything, here's the deal: is Aaron Rodgers. The reason I knew that game was going to get out of hand, and I actually thought Green Bay was going to do better than they did. I thought Green Bay was going to keep it close in the first half, and San Francisco would run away with it literally in the second half. And then we saw what Mostert in that run game did, and just sliced and diced Green Bay, which I think Brad, actually both of us were surprised by how easy it was for them to run the ball.
Well, I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was.
I'd never seen that before.
It reminds me a little of what was it? The Redskins Broncos Super Bowl, where like Timmy Smith comes out of nowhere and gashes them for like 200 yards. It's like, what? Yeah, you knew they were going to be able to run the ball, but like that?
15-yard clips without even being touched every single time. Yeah. That was so weird. And I'm not sure. I to this day, I don't even know what that was. I don't know what that was.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Shanahan definitely outcoached Pettin in that game, out-schemed them, but it is what it is. But what concerned me for Green Bay, in addition, like I kind of led off this segment with, was who's their second receiver, right? You need somebody to get open. And that's what Jimmy Graham was designed to be, is that outlet, that guy who could get open quick and early, that you could throw it high and the guy's going to come down with the ball. It certainly wasn't the case for them. Look, man, like Davante Adams, and he's a stud. He's a stud. Awesome. And this is another Colin Cowherd criticism. He's the only guy Aaron Rodgers throws to. What's his recourse? Drew Brees, the only guy he throws to is Michael Thomas. And I would actually say the Saints are in a similar situation where their secondary receivers, they're you got Ted Ginn, you got Traquan Smith, you got Kirkwood, who was hurt for most of last year. They're a similar team where if both of these teams very good, obviously I think they were the 2 and 3 seed last year in the playoffs. Both of these teams, if you get a wide receiver on this team, they completely move forward. At least the Saints have Jared Cook, somebody else to give an outlet to. But I mean, specifically with the Packers, they need a wide receiver, because San Francisco's pass defense was so good. They got a pass rush early. They could get a pass rush with 4. They could drop people in coverage, give more attention to Davante Adams, and they had no shot. They had no shot. Aaron Rodgers, the first time they played in the regular season, he couldn't even set his feet. San Francisco was in there so fast.
Right.
The second game, I mean, he was under pressure. It wasn't as bad as the first game. So a little bit more on the offensive line and a receiver. But Green Bay will be better next year. They will be better. No question.
Boy, the odd thing is that it's so weird, because San Francisco, obviously passed up on Aaron, and he can't beat them. Like, I know he's got this huge chip for them.
And he's from the area.
And he's from the area. He grew up a Niners fan, and he can't beat them. I mean, what's his record? Like,
even with the The controversial quarterback's name. I can't remember it off the top of my the running quarterback, Kaepernick.
Well, Kaepernick,
the Kaepernick years couldn't beat him.
Tore them up, man.
Yeah.
He must be 0-6 or 1-5 against them, and these are like, and half of them are legit playoff games.
Yeah, right.
So it's odd, right? But yet he can beat the crap out of Dallas.
Yeah.
He owns Dallas's world. It's funny.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they have to have. To me, everybody's competing with the 49ers, and we'll see if we get that usual post Super Bowl loss kind of step back. And the 49ers are in a tough division, which we'll talk about later on a later show. But we'll see. I think the 49ers organizationally are the class of the conference right now because they have a crazy defense. They have 2 first-round picks now, Brad, after acquiring the Colts number 13 overall. They're going to add more weapons on both sides of the ball probably in the first round. This team is set up to really take a long run. If they can just stay strong mentally this year, they're going to, they could very well be back in the Super Bowl. So the Packers, what they have to do is they have to react, and they need pass catching, right? I would say they're similar to what we were talking about with the Patriots earlier. One more receiver with speed to stretch the field and open things up so that Davante Adams can go deep or, run the in route or whatever, right? And they need maybe another tight end, and then some interior offensive line help will also help them out. Maybe some tackles as well, because you're competing in my mind against not even so much Minnesota and inside your division. I think everybody's chasing San Francisco and how to combat this crazy fast pass rush and this really strong pass defense, and they're going to get better in the offseason with these with these draft picks. It's going to be very, very difficult, very difficult.
Right.
But like we said, I think Green Bay will be better. At 13-3, I think that was a little inflated. I think 11-5, 12-4 was interesting. And I thought that Green Bay had been passed by Minnesota, but I think the Minnesota Vikings maybe are not the best team in this division anymore. But